Over Under Movies podcast, the show where we take a prominent figure or franchise in the world of filmmaking and ask the simple question, are they overrated or are they underrated? I'm joined as always by my good friend, my co-host. He is a fellow storm chaser with me.
He's like, I got nothing.
If storms are movies, then we are whatever types of scientists these people in this movie we're talking about today are. We are talking about Twister, the 1996 film, in anticipation for the release of the movie Twisters, which, as of the time this podcast comes out, should have come out a week or two ago.
And we're joined by a special guest on this pod. Actually, no.
Yeah, our special guest, unfortunately, couldn't be here. We did have a good friend of ours, Melissa, was very excited to talk about Twister. And then she texted me yesterday and said she wasn't sure she wanted to do the podcast. I think she was feeling a little nervous. She felt like she didn't have a lot to say. And then she texted me today, and she says she has uncontrollable diarrhea. I think she said there's...
You think she's making up the diarrhea to get out of the podcast?
I think she gave herself diarrhea to get out of the podcast. I don't think she would lie to us.
She's like chugging that stuff that you take for like colonoscopy prep.
Exactly. Which honestly, respect. Because, you know, it's one thing if people bail on plans, but if you're giving yourself diarrhea to get out of plans...
That's next level commitment.
Yeah.
And we get that a lot, that people will tell us like, oh yeah, like I'll be on the podcast, but like, I don't know, like I'm kind of nervous, like what am I going to say? Like, you're just talking, you're just having a conversation.
Yeah, and this is like all of our friends, we're movie people. So everyone we talk to, we talk about movies with them all the time, constantly.
Yeah. Can you have this conversation like not recorded? Then you could do it while it's recorded. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, but no criticism to
People
Melissa.
get a little stage fright. No, it's fine.
We're hoping that she feels better. That's the most important thing.
We'll have her on another episode.
Yeah, she'll be on the Beetlejuice episode. Probably.
Anyway, so yeah, we're talking about the 1996 film Twister today. Twister was the second highest grossing film of 1996. Jason, what was number one?
96? Titanic?
It was another disaster movie.
Armageddon?
It's not Armageddon. God damn it, Jason.
Wait, give me a hint. Independence Day.
Independence Day was number one. Let's go. Shout out to 1996. They love blowing shit up.
Big year for disasters.
Number three was a little film called Mission Impossible, which maybe we'll do on another episode. So I love the first Mission Impossible. But yeah, Twister, it stars, what's his name? Bill Paxton, Helen Hunt, Carrie Elways is in this.
Yeah, that's one thing that I was surprised by, is that this is a fairly stacked cast.
Yeah.
It's got those people that you mentioned. It's got Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Philip Seymour Hoffman is absolutely hamming it the fuck up in this movie.
He's having a great time.
He looks like he's on a lot of drugs.
Alan Ruck is in this, who is like known for being in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but then he was in this movie. Yeah, the cast is one thing that surprised me. Overall, how did you feel about this movie? Had you seen it before?
I don't think I've seen the entire film start to finish. This is a film that my mom likes a lot. Shout out to Pam, friend of the pod. My mom would like watch this a lot when I was a kid, I remember. And I guess, I mean, she's more into like NCIS stuff now. Like that's her like main stuff she's watching when I go over to the house. But yeah, she really liked those like 90s disaster movies. And this movie is like very 90s.
For some reason, it's a very mom-coded movie.
And what's interesting about it is that not only is it stacked in front of the camera, but it's also stacked behind the camera. Mm-hmm. Even though the director is a guy named John de Bont, who is a Dutch cinematographer. He is not like a well-known director or anything like that.
So interesting. This guy's name came up when I was researching another episode we didn't do, but we were going to release an episode on the Minority Report. This guy was in the running to direct that.
So this is a Spielberg guy.
Yeah, he was. Well, yeah, Spielberg was involved with this.
Because this is developed by Amblin. Steven Spielberg's an EP on this. Spielberg almost directed this movie. There's like a whole list. If you go on the Wikipedia page here, like the list of directors, it's all the guys that like almost directed this. James Cameron, Tim Burton, Robert Zemeckis, Steven Spielberg. They all almost directed Twister.
Yeah, and Jan de Bont, he was kind of like an up-and-comer, especially after this movie. But then I believe he directed a movie so bad that Spielberg took Minority Report away from him.
It's crazy how that happens sometimes, that like director jail is a real thing.
Oh, yeah.
The directors can make one bad movie and it's fucking deuces. Like, it's over.
Tragic, truly. But yeah, like you said, stacked behind the camera. Spielberg's involved. Kathleen Kennedy is involved. She's most famous now for being the head of Star Wars.
Yeah, the producers on this movie are Steven Spielberg, Kathleen Kennedy, and Michael Crichton.
Yeah, Michael Crichton also wrote it. along with his wife at the time, Anne Marie Martin. So this was a husband and wife screenwriter duo, which I thought was cool. This movie came out 3 years after Jurassic Park. You can definitely see the Jurassic Park success leading to this movie happening.
Yeah, and this is kind of in a similar vein as Jurassic Park. It is like a hybrid between really good practical effects and really good like early CGI work.
Yeah, really
all
good.
The tornadoes are CGI in this movie, obviously.
Yeah.
This is a movie that physically cannot happen without like CGI being a thing.
That's true. Well, we don't yet have well, maybe we have the technology now to make tornadoes, but probably not of this size. I don't know.
To make like actual tornadoes?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a scientist.
Maybe fact check. Let us know in the comments.
No, I bet if the military was like, we figured out a way to weaponize tornadoes, they could do it.
Yeah, not only that, but it has really good practical effects too, especially like all of the shit that's like flying around the trucks and whatnot. It really does make it feel believable that these people are in the middle of like all of this chaos. I guess we should talk about the plot of the movie real quick here. They're tornado chasers.
Yeah.
That's the movie, everybody.
So these are people who, there's two main characters, Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt.
Bill Paxton, who plays Bill.
Yeah. And Helen Hunt, who plays Joe. And they are a married couple on the verge of divorce. Bill has a new fiance type person, and he's trying to get Joe to sign the divorce papers. But our two leads are going to fall back in love as they do the thing that brought them together in the first place, which is chase tornadoes. They have developed this technology that will send sensors into the middle of the tornado.
Called Dorothy.
Yeah, inspired by the Wizard of Oz character Dorothy. There's this device called Dorothy that will send sensors into the tornado so that it can track the wind movement and create a better alert system for tornado warnings.
Yeah, they're creating like a digital model of tornadoes, like the inside of a tornado.
Yeah, so one thing that I think was kind of funny about this movie, it's not really funny, but this movie is like such a movie because we do get a scene at the very beginning explaining the rationale for why Joe is a tornado chaser, and it's because a tornado killed her dad. This is the most movie of all.
It's actually a revenge film.
It is. They treat the tornado like it's a sentient being. There's like this thing with horror movies where a character like Jason, they'll be like, oh, he's a force of nature. That's why he's so scary. But in this movie, they treat a force of nature like it's a serial killer, and she's trying to chase it down and stop it.
And just like a serial killer, like the tornadoes kind of follow like whatever the plot needs them to follow. I don't know if this is accurate to real life, but they have like 4 tornadoes in like a 24-hour period in this movie.
Yeah, they have
just nonstop tornadoes.
They have the mini twisters that are like the mini bosses of the big twister. Yeah. It's so silly.
At the very end, they got the big one.
Yeah. As we're talking about it, it kind of makes the movie sound awesome.
Yeah, but this movie's completely ridiculous, and it's really to no fault of the film itself. This is just like kind of how disaster movies are in general. I was trying to think about this, like leading up to this pod, like what is the best disaster movie ever made? Like what, like quality wise, what is the best? And it's like all of them are kind of like this. This is like the best you can get.
I think like a good disaster movie has to have like just interesting people and relationships at the center of it, which I think this movie starts off pretty strong.
It's trying.
Yeah, but like I like the movie, and I haven't seen this since I was a kid, but The Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Which is not a good movie.
You've got like romance between these two young characters, and then it's about a guy and his dad has to go get him out of the New York Public Library. I don't really remember.
Yeah, they tried to do that in 2012 also. Yeah. Like the movie is like kind of like a family drama while the world is ending. It's weird. This movie is almost like, okay, you've got a tornado, thing happening. That's your movie, right? But you can't just have the tornado be the movie. You need other stuff. So let's just like throw in a bunch of different like tropes that we know are things in movies. So we're going to give it a love triangle. Yep. Even though the love triangle makes absolutely no fucking sense.
And it resolves halfway through the movie.
Yeah, and that woman is never seen again. She's just out of the film.
I think the movie like took a turn for the worst after she left because she was the fish out of water. So Bill Paxton's character has this fiance who is not involved with storm chasing. She is just a woman who wants Joe to sign the divorce papers so that she can marry Bill.
She's a sex therapist.
That's right. So she at first is excited by the tornadoes, And then as soon as the tornadoes start destroying everything, she's like, oh, okay, you guys were crazy. I'm out. But like her reactions to the behavior of these insane scientists is like some of the best parts of this movie, I think, because she's kind of like the audience. She's like, these people are insane and stupid.
Yeah, honestly, she's pretty mild-mannered for a good bit of it, like all things considered. Because if I was in the truck, like with those people, and I saw like another truck get completely flipped upside down, I'd be like, get me the F out of here.
Goodbye.
I am not dying to a tornado. Every person, like, every one of these people that dies to a tornado, it's 100% their fault. They're driving into the danger.
That's right.
And these are like, you know, they try to give them like a noble cause, right? That they're trying to, you know, track the tornadoes so that they can get a better warning system. But, you know, in real life, a lot of these storm chasers are just thrill junkies. Yeah. They're just in it for like, you know, they want to feel something.
Yeah. So this is a real thing that people do is they chase these storms. And some of them, they're not trying to track anything. They're just trying to get it on video and, you know, have a little bit of excitement in their life.
Yeah, they're crazy, and they sometimes they die.
Yeah, I think this movie follows at least the basic draw of Jurassic Park, which makes sense since they got the same writing team, the same production team. It's get a ragtag group of relatively hot scientists and put them in danger. And that's a successful formula for movies.
I don't know. Like. It's an interesting cast because the leads are like kind of like middle-aged. I know I joke all the time when we're watching movies that like the characters are like actually in like their late 20s or early 30s when they look when they look a lot older. Bill Paxton's 41 in this movie. So when it comes to like leads, like I mean he looks 41 in the 90s. And I'm guessing Helen Hunt was probably like a similar age. So they're not exactly like, you know, in their mid to late 20s here. Like, I guess we can compare this a little bit to Twisters. We're doing this pod because Twisters is coming out in theaters. Twisters is like a soft reboot almost to this franchise. It's insane that it took, 30 years to make a second one here, considering the first one made $500 million.
Yep. Yeah.
And the leads in that one are Glenn Powell and Daisy Edgar-Jones, who are both, like, really good-looking people.
Yeah, they're in their 30s, but look like they could be in their 20s.
It's insane. I swear to God, I thought Glenn Powell was like 48.
Really? How old is he?
He's 35.
Okay.
He has that look. He looks like Ryan Reynolds or like Paul Rudd. Like he looks like a very well-aged, like middle-aged man.
Yeah.
He does not look 35. He looks kind of old for a 35-year-old.
I think he looks 35. I don't know.
I can't unsee it now. He looks like a guy in his like 40s or 50s that's had like cosmetic work on his face. So
you think he looks like a 45-year-old that looks like a 35-year-old instead of just a 35-year-old?
Yeah, I mean, he looks like Ryan Reynolds. And how's Ryan Reynolds? Like 48, 49?
Yeah, almost 50, I would guess.
And Paul Rudd's like 52, 53, something like that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Interesting. I don't think I've seen a movie with Glenn Powell in it at this point.
You haven't seen Top Gun Maverick?
I have not seen Top Gun Maverick.
Wow, that's insane.
So, I have not seen anyone but you.
You haven't seen Hitman?
No, I heard that's good though. I was listening to a pod of people like ranking like the best movies of the year.
It's a fun little movie.
Yeah, he's like an up and comer. Anyway, like getting back to like the original Twister though, like these are like kind of like middle-aged people. They're like running things, so it's a little bit. I guess that's something that was like more acceptable in the 90s. Maybe because Jurassic Park is the same way.
Yeah, exactly. They're definitely hot scientists, but they're not Hollywood hot. They're just normal.
They're an achievable level of hotness.
Yeah, they look like they could have gone to school and gotten PhDs, and they're not actors. But they are actors, and they're attractive.
You look at Glenn Powell, and you're like, that guy's not a scientist.
He's not a scientist.
You're not fucking fooling us, Glenn Powell.
Yeah, movies have changed a lot. We could do a whole podcast on the different beauty standards between, I guess, 1996 and today. But that's not what we're here for.
Yeah, a lot less Botox to go around back then. They weren't getting the buccal fat reduction or whatever it's called.
Nope. So another element or trope in this movie that we haven't talked about, in addition to the love triangle, there is a rival scientist that they're trying to beat to the middle of the twister.
Yeah, they're the corpo storm chasers.
Yeah, they make it very clear that The character Jonas, played by Cary Elwes, is the sellout scientist. He took money from corporate labs, and he's not in it for the love of the game.
He took it from Big Tornado.
Yeah, he's driving into tornadoes for money, not for the passion.
Not because he wants to die.
So stupid. So he's treated as like this bad character.
That's another plot thread that doesn't go anywhere either. There's what, like 3 scenes that involve his character, and that's it. That's
spoilers. He dies because he drives into the tornado.
He dies with like 20 minutes left in the movie. It's pretty anticlimactic.
Yeah. So the two two of the main conflicts, the love triangle and then trying to beat this guy into the tornado, they both resolve before the climax, which I think is a strange way to structure the movie. Normally, I think you would expect everything to kind of resolve at once or get it as close together as possible.
But listen, Michael Crichton, if you're, pay attention to this.
Yeah, Michael Crichton, take notes.
This is important.
Is he still alive? I think he passed away.
Did he?
Hold on. Ooh.
That's unfortunate. We might have to break up.
He died in 2008, dude.
No, we're not even fucking close.
We talked about this on my Jurassic Park podcast, on my old podcast called Page to Frame. No longer available anywhere.
All right. Well, we'll break out the Ouija board, talk to Michael Crichton.
Give him some notes on how to write a goddamn movie. How
to write like some actual 3-act structure here. That's like, I mean, like overall, I gotta say, like I didn't love this movie. Mm-hmm. I think it's fine, and I think if you enjoy like the disaster porn elements of it, like it's perfectly enjoyable. This is a movie that if your mom sees it on TNT on a Wednesday night, like she'll probably just watch
buckle down and watch it
while she's playing Candy Crush or whatever on her phone.
Yeah,
that's what this movie is. This movie is not like lock yourself in your seat, like high-octane action, like let's fucking rev, like pedal to the metal.
Although I think like if you were watching this in the 90s in a theater, you probably would be locked in that type of way. But like for us, it didn't have that effect.
Yeah, this movie screams. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure she like loves this movie. That's probably why she wanted to do it. This movie like screams like Universal Studios 4D experience,
which they had that ride.
I've been on that ride at Universal Studios. Yeah.
Apparently, Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton started to hate each other during this movie, and then when they went to record scenes for that ride, they refused to be in scenes together.
Great. I always love that whenever like a movie like blows up and the leads absolutely fucking hate each other.
Yeah, it's interesting. We talked about that a little on The Notebook, but like with that one, it was interesting because they hated each other and then they fell in love for real and then they broke up. So always interesting. Another thing about this movie that I think makes it such a movie is they use a smash cut joke twice. There's a scene where one of the trucks gets destroyed. So they're like, all right, we're going to use Bill and his fiance's truck. And they're like, oh, it's not insured for this. And then he's
we
like,
are absolutely not doing this.
Absolutely not doing this. Smash cut to that truck is leading the convoy towards the tornadoes. And then they do the same joke 2 scenes later where they're like, oh, Joe, aren't we close to your aunt's house right now? We're hungry. And she's like, there is no way we're going to my aunt's house. Smash cut to them at her aunt's house. Like, it's like so many easy 90s comedic beats, and they're just shoved in here. It's the most movie I think I've watched in a long time.
Not only that, this movie has a scene in a drive-thru where they're playing The Shining.
A drive-in theater, yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah, drive-thru movie theater. Yeah, like, the movie just feels like it's a series of scenes that happen in a row, and that makes it a movie. However, none of it is like perfectly coherent. Mm-hmm. I feel like this movie has a pretty good like cast of the other storm chasers that we see them at the beginning in the movie, and the movie does a pretty good job at like introducing all of them, specifically Philip Seymour Hoffman, who again was probably actually on a lot of drugs in this movie.
Oh yeah.
He looked like coked out of his mind. But like they introduce all of these like secondary storm chasers, and I assume like each of them would have their own like personalities, and we'd be seeing them throughout the film. Not really. Like they're just kind of like the posse.
Yeah, they're a great supporting cast, but they don't really do anything.
And again, that's like that's the screenwriter's problem that they didn't like write in like cool stuff for those characters to do.
Yeah,
or at least you like have a scene where like one of the trucks gets destroyed and like a couple of them are killed or something. Like give like real stakes to the film.
Yeah, because the only people we see die are Joe's dad, and he had to die in order to spark her love of tornado chasing.
First of all, he did not have to die. Okay. For some reason, he's holding on to the storm door, and when he flies off with the door, her and her mom and the dog are fine inside the storm shelter. He could just let the door fly off.
That's true. He could have been back there holding on to whatever they were.
Why did he have to hold on to the door?
I don't know. I just love the fact that she's a tornado chaser because a tornado killed her dad. I think that's so funny.
He went to the Pa Kent School of Unnecessary Fatherly Sacrifice in a movie.
Yeah, so I thought I had seen this movie before, but what I had actually watched... Hold on, listen. It's not what you think. It's similar. What I had actually watched was a 1996 made-for-TV film called Night of the Twisters, which starred the dad from Smallville. So the Pa Kent of Smallville. Not Kevin Costner from... I didn't mix it up with Kevin Costner.
You did not mix it up with Man of Steel.
In Man of Steel, no. But apparently there's another tornado that kills another Pa Kent. Or maybe he didn't die. I don't remember. Anyway, I thought I had seen this. I hadn't. I saw what might have been a knockoff on TV.
You're watching them eat dinner at Joe's aunt's house, and you're like, when does Henry Cavill show up?
I will say that dinner scene was... I mean, they made big stakes for those tornado chasers. That got me interested in the movie.
That might be the best scene in the movie right there. Because it does, as the movie progresses, you feel like they kind of have a bit of plot armor to them. Like, the tornado that rips through the drive-through, like, I feel like that should just kill everybody. And, like, they go into, like, a little, like, metal shed enclosure that's clearly not designed to, like, withstand tornadoes. And, like, I mean, they should just get, like, torn up.
Yeah.
Inside that thing.
The whole shed gets, like, torn off. And I don't know what they're holding on to exactly, that they are just fine. But,
I mean, granted, at the very end of the movie, that it's like, what? It's like an F5 tornado. It's like the biggest tornado possible. And they use, like, belts or, like, ropes that they tie around, like, a pipe.
It's, pipes that go 30 feet into the ground. So there's a good chance that they won't come undone.
Yeah, you know what will come undone? Like, your arm. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It'll just rip you
get
apart.
Torn off. Yeah. Well... Look, we're not scientists, and those are like the types of things that are kind of overly nitpicky.
I would say they're nitpicky. I mean, the real star of the show here is the visual effects. Mm-hmm. There are two shots in this film that are like all-time iconic visual effects. The one is the cow flying across the screen.
The cow is funny.
And they go, cow, and then they go, another cow. And he's like, I think that's the same cow.
I know, that's really good.
What a trip. That cow's got to be freaking out, man. And then the other is the house, which is practical. Mm-hmm. They actually drove a car through a house, or a house set at least, that they built. Sick. Completely practical, which is absolutely absurd that they did that. It would 100% be CGI. I wonder, because we have not seen the new one, I wonder if they do a callback to that house, like if they do a similar like big thing that they have to like drive through.
I'm sure they will, yeah.
As like a callback.
There's got to be like a big practical set piece. Otherwise, Tom Cruise wouldn't have endorsed the movie.
And I was also watching some behind the scenes stuff for this movie where, anytime you're seeing like a close up of like the dashboard of the two people in the truck, it's like the director and like all the people are on like vehicles in front of them, just like absolutely pelting them with ice and like all sorts of other crap. And I remember like Bill Paxton, because like I think he was like actually driving the truck. He was saying that like that was all real. Like he was like, we were not acting. I could not see.
Yeah, that was an interesting component, was just how much was just driving. Apparently they were driving in like bright sunny conditions, but they had to like make it really look like they were driving through tornadoes. And I think they did a really good job. Yeah,
this isn't exactly like Mad Max Fury Road. Like they're just driving on like regular old, middle of America roads, like surrounded by farmland. Like it's not, on the surface, it's not that interesting. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a pretty good job by the filmmakers to consistently make it feel at least like threatening.
Mm-hmm. So like you said before, this movie made $500 million off like a $90 million budget.
Yep.
What's the last disaster movie that did numbers like that? I mean, Titanic, if you consider that a disaster movie, that's one of the highest grossing pictures of all time. But like, has anything like that happened since, I was going to say since 2000, but let's just say it, since 9/11, has there been a disaster movie that's come close to that?
I was going to say, because I think Armageddon was 98. Mm-hmm. So if we're saying after Armageddon, I can't really think of many big ones that really hit on the same level.
So like, disaster movies are almost like a a genre past, like Westerns. Like, you just can't put out a disaster movie and expect it to do numbers today.
Well, because one, it's a genre that requires a big budget basically these days. And there's not a lot of directors that are even like interested in that kind of stuff. It's like Roland Emmerich and that's it. He's the only one that's like really going for like big budget, disaster stuff. And he's cool if it's not like, the most amazing like film ever made. He just wants like the cool visuals. Like, I think like 2012 was probably like the last big one that came out. And I don't even know if 2012 made a lot of money.
I don't think so. So that's interesting. Like, this type of movie hasn't done well over the last 20 years, and we have a new one coming out in theaters now, so we'll have to see.
I think it's tracking pretty well. I think it opened internationally already by the time like we're recording this, and I'm pretty sure internationally it's doing well already.
Okay.
Which is interesting because this is like a pretty American like movie, considering like Tornado Alley is like an American thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any other country that has like a whole strip of it that just gets like fucking ravaged by tornadoes every year.
Yeah, that's a good question. I have no idea. Yeah, so we'll see. Maybe this could break the streak of like disaster movie flops. Maybe Twister 2 is exactly what we needed.
And one thing I do appreciate with the new one, at least this is what I've like read, is that the characters in this film are not related in any way to the characters from the first movie. This really is kind of like a soft reboot, which is something that like every other franchise has this problem where they need to do like callbacks to the original in some way.
Yeah, or like make it a passing of the torch legacy sequel.
Like Glenn Powell is like, Joe and Bill's son or something like that. He's taking over the business. That's not what the plot of this movie is.
So there were plenty of pitches for a Twister 2 where it was a lot more like that, and they all got rejected for one reason or another. This one, I'm not sure if a single actor returns. I had read somewhere that Joe is in the new one, but then I wasn't able to confirm that anywhere. So
yeah, because I mean, Bill Paxton's dead.
Right.
Philip Seymour Hoffman also dead.
Right.
Is Carrie Elwes? Well, Carrie Elwes is dead in the first movie, so it'd be weird to bring his character back.
That would be crazy if he somehow survived.
He's resurrected. I survived the tornado, bitch.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see. Are you gonna see Twisters in theater?
Yeah, I mean, I've got an AMC A-list. I'll probably see it in theaters.
Shout out to AMC A-list.
Shout out to the A-list. I almost went to their mystery screening that they had last night. They have like, I think Regal does this too. They'll do mystery films that you can like basically sign up for, and then they'll just play something that's coming out in theaters in the next like couple weeks. But it's almost always, at least from what I was reading, like smaller like indie films, and none of the ones that they were, for this one really interest me. Yeah,
my mom went to a Monday matinee mystery last week, I think, and they played Fly Me to the Moon, that new Channing Tatum ScarJo movie.
Yeah, that's flopping big time right now. Yeah. Because, I know Scarlett Johansson specifically is an actress that, like, she's really expensive to have in a movie. So, yeah, it's like a mega flop from what I was reading.
That's rough. It's an interesting concept, but whatever. That's not what we're here to talk about. So, we have opinions on this movie, and we've told you how well it did at the box office. Let's see how it did critically so that we can analyze whether it's overrated or underrated. This movie has a 65% on Rotten Tomatoes, so certified fresh, but kind of on the lower end of that.
Yeah.
It's got a 68 on Metacritic and an A- audience score on CinemaScore. Roger Ebert gave it 2.5 stars out of 4 and wrote, "You want loud, dumb, skillful, escapist entertainment? Twister works. You want to think twice about seeing it." And then it's got
leave your brain at home, bitch.
It's got a 3.2 on Letterboxd. So which one of those scores do you want to use as our default objective rating?
I mean, it seems like 6 out of 10 is kind of like where it's landing right here, maybe a little higher than that.
Sure. So
I mean, Letterboxd is what, 6.4 out of 10?
Yeah, so Rotten Tomatoes has it at 65%. Yeah, so we'll just use that.
It's in that same range, yeah.
So Dylan, are you taking the overrated argument here?
I don't know. Which one are you more comfortable with? Well, we're super prepared for this episode.
I think we did a good job talking about it for our lack of strong feelings.
You know what? I got an idea. How about we do it together?
Okay, and say that what? It's overrated?
No. We'll collectively do the overrated, and then we'll collectively do the underrated.
That's cool. Okay, I like that. All right. So overrated. What do you got?
Okay, so the argument for the overrated for this movie is that it's not actually that good of a movie, and that it made a ton of money, and that it has this like lasting legacy of this like big 90s disaster movie, but realistically It's in a genre that is not that competitive. There are not a lot of disaster movies in general, let alone ones that are like 6 out of 10 on the quality scale. So because of that, it stands out like a sore thumb a little bit. Even though in reality, it's not that high of a mark. We spent like most of this podcast like criticizing the plot of the movie. If this movie did not have tornadoes in it, it would be awful. It would be an absolute slog. I understand the tornadoes are the whole part. Anything that is not like an actual tornado chase in this movie is boring as shit. And I don't think the two main leads are like that charismatic, honestly. I feel like if they went with like different actors in the 90s, possibly it would have been more interesting. You swap them out with like actors from like Jurassic Park. It would just be a better movie.
Yeah, I could see that. Right. I mean, the two lead scientists in this are not as memorable as any of the lead scientists in Jurassic Park. Like we have a shrine to Jeff Goldblum in the living room. Well, there's no way we would have a shrine to either of these two actors. Although I will say, like, they do good work, and I'm interested in seeing more of them because I didn't watch a lot of them in the 90s. Yeah, I think my problems with this movie, just the main things are that the love triangle gets resolved halfway through the movie, which is stupid. That tertiary character, the hiccup in the love story, should be there through to the end. And she should continue to give comments about how stupid these people are for chasing tornadoes, because that's a lot of fun.
No, well, yeah. What should happen is that he ends up with his fiance at the end of the movie, right? Because she didn't do anything wrong.
Well, no, it's okay if he realizes
she's like what's that? She's like James Marsden in The Notebook. It's like this person did nothing wrong, but they're on the wrong end of the love triangle because the other two are the leads of the movie.
Well, Bill Paxton realizes that like his real love is chasing tornadoes.
Yeah, we didn't mention this, but like he took a job as a weatherman.
Yeah, and that's treated as like a joke, as if being a weatherman is
They're like, yo, bro, I heard you're a weatherman.
It's the most loser job you can get.
He's like, I have health insurance. I'm not gonna die from a tornado.
But yeah, they treat becoming a weatherman as like the ultimate sign of settling down. No, them resolving that love triangle so early was weird and kind of removed a lot of tension from the movie. And then the villain character dying, I thought it also happened too early, and it was kind of underwhelming. They do that like Final Destination style kill where like this big metal scaffolding flies through the windshield of the car, impaling his driver. And then they cut to like a wide of the tornado just picking up the car, spinning it around, and crashing it into the ground in a big CGI explosion. I think they should have shown quite a bit more violence with that kill, to kind of display just how real they can make the tornado feel.
Well, the issue with that villain arc in general is that it's a side effect of the fact that they're in two separate convoys of storm chasers. So how do you get these characters to interact with each other? They're in different vehicles, like way far away from each other, and they're talking on like walkie-talkies and like bad mouthing each other. Like that's it. That's all you got.
Yeah, there's almost elements where it's like they're racing and they're trying to outsmart each other to like track the path of the tornado or estimate the path of the tornado. But none of it really feels that tense in the way that I think the movie wants it to.
Yeah, it would have been cool if there was like a part in the movie where like maybe the Corpo convoy gets like decimated in some way and they have to like link up with the main crew and they have to like work together to like overcome like the F5 or something like that.
Yeah, I think that would have been a better use of having these other characters in the movie. So yeah, plot-wise, this movie leaves some to be desired because it introduces so much, and then at the end of the day, it's just like, okay, they go into the tornado, are they going to live or not? And what about underrated? What do you got?
The argument for underrated is that this movie is like a visual like masterpiece almost when it comes to the blending of CGI and practical effects. This is done by ILM, which is George Lucas's company, Amblin Entertainment, Steven Spielberg. This has got like the best of the best working on it in visual effects in the 90s. And these guys are like on the bleeding edge always of what could be done in film. And it's interesting that they go into this one being like, let's do tornadoes. And the tornadoes look really good in this movie. I mean, a tornado is a giant cone of like wind and debris. And like, it's very easy to make like a bad looking tornado in CGI, I'm sure, because you just have like a spinning like cloud, right? But like it looks pretty realistic in this movie, especially the big one at the very end. Like you believe it, and that's like a mark of like well-aged CGI, is that you don't notice the CGI in this movie. This movie is almost 30 years old, so it's a testament to that. So like all the issues that we have with the plot, I think like most of them are resolved by like how good the movie looks, and how like, you know, the action is like pretty relentless in this movie, pacing wise. Even though the movie's too long, the movie's like 2 hours long, which is, you know, maybe cut down like 15 minutes of that. I think it would be nice and snug.
Yep.
But like the visual effects are great, because like, I mean, I think you gave it a 3 out of 5, right? I'm guessing that was mostly because you were like, this is cool action. And like, always you have to evaluate a film based on what are the goals set out of the filmmaker. And when it comes to a disaster movie, you want like explosions, you want stuff getting destroyed, and you want cool action sequences. This movie's nothing but cool action sequences.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I will also say that I was fairly charmed by the lead actors. I think the setup for their relationship was good. Like, I was curious how they were going to resolve it. Like I said, I didn't really love how the love triangle resolved, but I think it was like a good thing to center your disaster movie around, is this relationship between these two storm chasing adrenaline junkies that fell out of love and then through storm chasing now fall back in love. I think that's a great premise for a movie.
So it's funny because the new one seems to have a similar premise, except it's like rival storm chasers that like fall in love with each other. That's what it seems like, right? Because Glenn Powell plays like a celebrity storm chaser, and then Daisy Edgar-Jones plays like Joe, basically.
Right.
And so it's like, what if Bill wasn't in the original movie and it was like Joe falling in love with Carrie Elway's character?
Yeah.
That's kind of what the new one is, somewhat.
Yeah, that should be interesting. Like we said, when you have a disaster movie, you kind of have to center it around strong relationships. And I think this one did do that, at least initially. And then other stuff we said, it's got a really stacked cast. It's got a stacked crew. There's just a lot to like about it and enjoy. So that's it for me for underrated. What about you? Anything else?
No, not really. When it comes to the plot, like it didn't really hook me too much overall. I wish that the movie did a better job at establishing stakes more than anything. Again, the characters felt like they had plot armor for the most part, which is unfortunate considering they had, like, their storm chasing crew was like 10 people.
Yeah.
There was some room to, you know, thin the herd a little bit there.
They could have been fodder, but they were all relatively known actors. Maybe they had in their contracts that they couldn't die.
I'm not allowed to die. It's like The Rock. Apparently The Rock writes it into his contract that he can't lose a fight in a movie.
Yeah. No, I don't think Philip Seymour Hoffman or Alan Ruck have that type of ego about them.
Philip Seymour Hoffman was like, I'll die. I just need a lot of cocaine.
Yeah. All right, on that note, that's going to wrap it up for our arguments. Dylan, what do you think? Overrated or underrated?
You know, I think I'm going to zag a little bit here, and I do think the movie's a little underrated. You know, when we got into, like, the pantheon of disaster movies, there's just not a lot of good ones, and this is pretty serviceable of a film, and it's, you know, ultimately harmless. Like, it's not doing anything, like, too over-the-top crazy. I think it ages pretty well, even though it looks kind of 90s in, like, I don't know, like visually it's a little bland. Mm-hmm. You know, it's middle America, but yeah, like I think it's a solid movie, and it made a shitload of money, mm-hmm. which is always cool to see. Like films that are like, you know, this movie made 5 times its budget back. You know, so yeah, I would say that's a little bit underrated. You know, since we were coming at what, like 65%. Yeah, I think this movie's like a solid, like, you know, 7 out of 10 on a good day.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. There's enough in here to like. I think I'm similar where, as we were talking about this movie, I came around on it a lot more. Like, we were talking about the bad elements, but we were laughing the whole time. So there's almost like a small camp element to this, which I think is... And
it sounds like that's what the sequel is doing. The sequel's like dialing that camp up just a couple notches. And I think it's going to help out a lot here.
Yeah, we'll see if that's...
Especially, you know, the leads seem a lot more charismatic as well, which will be, you know, it'll be interesting to see, like, yeah, what they do with a slightly campier tone, because the scientists are like pretty serious for the most part, outside of like, you know, some of the secondary guys are like goofy, like the rest of the crew. Yeah, but like the leads are like really serious in the movie, and I think it kind of like drags it down just a hair, considering like, yeah, people go to see a disaster movie for fun.
Yeah, and I think that the two leads in the new one are gonna have a lot more moments where they're kind of like just being charming for the camera.
Just be hot.
Yeah,
Be hot tornado scientists.
I think I agree with you. This is maybe like a 7 out of 10 movie. You know, it's never going to be like a classic for me that I'll always return to or anything like that. But it's a fine movie, and I get why it made so much money back in the day.
This movie is in the syndication Hall of Fame. I mean, the number of times this has been on TNT or TBS, I'm sure it's like so much, like the residuals that these actors got from doing Twister. Absolutely absurd.
Good for them. Yeah. And then, like we said, like, it's just they haven't really been able to replicate the success of this since then.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see if Twisters makes like, I don't know, we'll say $400 million.
Yeah.
Do they make a third one? Like, and how fast do they like try to like jump on it? Mm-hmm. I don't know. We'll see.
Cool. Well, that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you for watching. You can check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your pods. You can join our Discord server to talk about movies with us. You can follow us on Patreon. Pay us $2 a month to get your name in the credits.
You have $2.
Put food on our table. But even if all you want to do is watch or listen wherever you're doing it, we appreciate you. So thank you. And we will see you at the movies. Bye.
Peace.
Cool.
We out.
Thanks.